She walks in like she owns the place because she does. But the receptionist doesn't know that yet. She stepped through the glass doors like she had every right to be there. Because she did. Black heels on polished marble, a sharp navy suit, a leather briefcase with her initials engraved in gold. Everything about her presence screamed authority, but all the receptionist saw was a black woman with too much confidence. This was Janelle Carter, a self-made CEO who just finalized the acquisition of this struggling tech firm 3 days ago. She wasn't here for a tour or a meeting. She was here to take the keys. But the moment she walked into the lobby, the atmosphere changed. Not because of her power, but because no one expected that power to look like her. The receptionist, young, gum-popping, barely glancing up from her phone, didn't even stand to greet her. Instead, she gave Janelle that look. That look black women know too well. The one that silently says, "You don't belong here." Janelle was halfway to the elevators when the girl snapped, "Excuse me, ma'am. Can I help you?" Not, "Welcome." Not, "Do you have an appointment?" Just suspicion. Immediate, cold, sharp. Janelle turned, calm and composed. "I'm heading to the top floor." The receptionist squinted. "And who are you here to see?" That's when it started the quiet snickers from a few interns nearby. One even whispered, "Delivery, maybe?" Janelle smiled, just barely. "I'll be meeting with the executive team." Now the receptionist straightened up a bit. "Oh, right. Okay. But I still need to see some ID. Company policy." She said it like a threat, not a rule. Janelle slowly opened her briefcase, not rushing, not flinching. She wasn't here to prove anything. She was here to observe. Because how people treat you before they know who you are, that's the part they never get to take back. As she handed over her ID, the girl barely looked at it and still didn't recognize the name. "You'll need to wait. The execs are probably in a meeting," she said flatly. Janelle glanced at her watch. 5 more minutes, she thought. Then this whole building changes. "Are you lost, sweetie?" Janelle had barely taken a seat when the receptionist leaned over the desk with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You look a little lost, sweetie. This isn't the temp agency. That's across the street." The word sweetie hit like a slap. It wasn't kind. It was condescending, dipped in sugar, but sharp as glass. Janelle's expression didn't change. But inside, something started to simmer. See, this wasn't the first time someone mistook her confidence for arrogance, or her skin for a red flag. She gave a polite nod. "Thanks for the concern, but I'm exactly where I need to be." The receptionist laughed, like she'd heard a joke. "Right. Just saying we get a lot of people walking in thinking this is a staffing office. Happens all the time." Translation: "You don't look like someone who works here." Janelle didn't respond. Instead, she pulled out her phone and texted her assistant. "They have no idea who I am. Let's keep it that way for now." Because here's the thing, no one in that lobby knew. Janelle Carter wasn't just some corporate suit. She had started from scratch. Public housing, scholarships, side hustles, nights working the front desk at a motel while taking business classes online. She'd been the receptionist. She'd been the intern. She knew what it was like to be invisible. And now, she owned the building. But none of that mattered right now, because what mattered was how she was being treated before the reveal. She sat quietly, observing everyone who walked through the doors. Not one person acknowledged her. Some employees glanced at her with that same dismissive smirk. One security guard even nodded toward her and whispered something to the front desk. Janelle heard it. "She's probably here for housekeeping. Want to check?" The receptionist laughed again. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just ignorance, it was a culture. A whole workplace so used to judging by looks, they couldn't even imagine a black woman in power unless she had a mop in her hand. And still, Janelle said nothing. Not yet. Because the more they disrespected her, the more powerful the moment of truth would become. She crossed her legs, checked her watch, and waited. 3 minutes left. The disrespect escalates in front of everyone. Janelle didn't flinch when the receptionist laughed. She didn't argue. She didn't need to. But the receptionist wasn't done yet, not even close. With a loud sigh and exaggerated movements, the girl picked up the phone and called security. Right there, in front of everyone in the lobby. "Hey, Marcus? Yeah, I've got someone here. Says she's going to the executive floor, but she's not on the visitor list. Yeah, you might want to come check it out." She didn't lower her voice. She wanted everyone to hear. Around the room, people started turning their heads. A guy in a Patagonia vest nudged his coworker. Another one trying to sneak into interviews? A woman in HR shoes, you know the type, walked past, glanced at Janelle, then whispered under her breath, "Bold move," showing up without an appointment. Janelle sat still, perfect posture, legs crossed, calm expression. But inside, the fire was building. She'd been here before, not this building, but this moment. That feeling of being doubted, disrespected, labeled, as if confidence in a Black woman's body was some kind of threat. And then came security. Marcus was a tall man, maybe late 50s, with a buzz cut and a clipboard. He approached slowly, like she was a problem to solve. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see some identification," he said, scanning her like she might be hiding something. She handed him the same ID she gave the receptionist. He blinked. "Wait, Janelle Carter?" She nodded. He looked again. His eyebrows twitched. Recognition was starting to form, but he didn't quite connect the dots. "Are you here for an interview?" Now she smiled. Just a little. "No," she said. "I'm here to assess the culture." The receptionist raised an eyebrow. What's that supposed to mean? But Janelle didn't answer. She just leaned back and looked at the clock behind the desk. 2 minutes left. That's when one of the junior managers walked by, mid-30s, confident, in a rush. He paused, looked at the scene, and asked the receptionist, "Everything okay here?" "She says she's going upstairs," the receptionist replied, loud enough for the whole lobby. "Thinks she's meeting the execs." The manager barely looked at Janelle. "Yeah, that's not how this works." He turned to Marcus. "You can escort her out if she won't leave." That was it. Not even a question. No curiosity. No benefit of the doubt. Just another day. Another judgment. And Janelle? She just kept smiling. Because in 60 seconds, everything was about to change. She asks to speak to the owner. The receptionist smirks and says, "He's busy." Janelle stood up, not rushed, not flustered, just done. Done with the whispers. Done with the stares. Done with being polite in a room full of people who refused to see her. She walked up to the front desk, locked eyes with the receptionist, and said calmly, "Maybe you can help me after all. I'd like to speak to the owner." The room went still. Even Marcus, the security guard, shifted awkwardly. The receptionist blinked like she'd just heard a joke. "Excuse me?" Janelle repeated it, clearly this time. "The owner. I'd like to speak to the person in charge." The girl leaned back in her chair and smirked that smug, slow grin that says you're way out of your league. "Oh, honey," she said, loud enough for the nearby interns to hear. "He's not available. Kinda busy running a company." There it was again, that quiet assumption that real power could only look one way, and Janelle didn't match the picture. The junior manager, still hovering nearby, chuckled. "Yeah, the owner's probably in a board meeting right now. Try emailing his assistant next time." Janelle tilted her head slightly. "You've met him?" The manager shrugged. "Couple times. Big deal around here." Janelle nodded slowly, her tone still calm. "And what's he like?" "White guy, older, sharp dresser. Drives that silver Benz out front," he said, gesturing toward the lot. "Why?" Janelle just smiled. Because the truth was, that silver Benz? It wasn't his, it was hers. She had it delivered this morning. And the older white guy he was describing? That was probably the last CEO, the one she just bought out. But she didn't correct him. Not yet. She wanted this moment to marinate, because the deeper their assumptions went, the sweeter the collapse would be. She checked her phone. A single notification. Acquisition finalized. You're officially in. Then, a second message from her assistant. Shall we begin? Janelle looked up, met the receptionist's eyes, and said softly, Actually, I think I'll wait right here. I'm curious how this ends. Then she gets the call. Ready when you are, ma'am. Her phone buzzed once, just one simple vibration against the polished wood of the front desk. No alarms, no chaos, just that moment. The receptionist didn't notice. She was too busy scrolling through her feed, still smirking, still assuming. The junior manager had already moved on. Security stood nearby, arms crossed, waiting to see if they needed to escort her out. But Janelle? She was already winning. She glanced at the screen. It was from her assistant. Board is waiting upstairs, full team in place. Everyone briefed. Ready when you are, ma'am. The words hit like thunder, but only she could hear it. Because power doesn't always announce itself with noise. Sometimes it just stands still and lets the room bury itself. She looked up and locked eyes with Marcus, the security guard. Actually, she said gently, I think I'll head up now. Marcus looked confused. But you're not on the... She cut him off with a warm smile. I own the list. He blinked. Come again? She leaned in slightly. I am the new owner, as of 10 minutes ago. Silence. For a few seconds, no one said anything. The air in the room froze. Then came the shift. The visible shift. Marcus looked at her ID again, really looked this time. His face went pale. The receptionist stood up slowly, her voice suddenly soft. Wait, you're Janelle Carter? As in, that Janelle Carter? Janelle nodded once, calm as ever. The one and only. The receptionist's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her eyes darted toward the elevator, then toward the interns, who just watched her mock the woman who signs the paychecks now. The manager from earlier peeked back into the lobby, confused by the sudden quiet until he saw Janelle walking toward the elevator, phone in hand, posture unbothered. She didn't turn around, didn't gloat, didn't rub it in. She simply pressed the button, waited for the doors to open, and said one thing before stepping inside. Y'all might want to call a staff meeting. Things are about to change. Ding. The doors closed, and the silence she left behind was louder than any speech she could have given. She walks back in with the board of directors behind her. 27 minutes later, the elevator dinged again. This time, no one ignored it. Heads turned. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Even the receptionist froze posture stiff. Smile nowhere to be found. Because it wasn't just Janelle stepping out. Behind her were 6 people in suits, moving with quiet authority. The company's executive legal team, her personal assistant, and 2 members of the new board of directors, the ones who just appointed Janelle Carter as CEO and majority owner. She didn't speak right away. She didn't have to. Her presence alone said everything. I am not here to explain myself. I am here to lead. The receptionist stood, nervously clutching the edge of her desk. Miss Carter, I didn't know. Janelle looked at her, measured, calm. That's exactly the problem. Around the lobby, employees had started to gather, whispering. Some of them remembered what they'd said when she first walked in. Others just stared at the scene unfolding in front of them, realizing too late that they'd missed something big. The junior manager who'd told security to escort her out? He stepped forward, awkwardly adjusting his tie. Miss Carter, I apologize if... She held up a hand. No need. I've already seen what I needed to see. She turned to her assistant. Do we have the internal files? Yes, ma'am. Full staffing reports. HR flagged the receptionist 3 times already. The receptionist's eyes widened. Wait, what? Janelle didn't even look at her. This isn't personal, it's cultural. And culture starts at the door. The board members behind her nodded in agreement. One of them, a sharp-eyed woman with silver earrings, added, "First impressions matter. And from what we witnessed earlier, the company has some serious problems." Janelle finally turned to face the lobby. Her voice was steady, clear. "Some of you judged me before I ever said a word. You assumed I didn't belong here, that I wasn't important, that I wasn't you. But let me be very clear. I own everything you're standing on." Silence again. Then she delivered the final blow. Not cruel, but decisive. "And I take ownership seriously, which means it's time for a reset." She turned to her assistant. "Start with the front desk." The receptionist gasped. "You're firing me?" Janelle didn't raise her voice. "You fired yourself. I just made it official." And just like that, the balance shifted. The people who had laughed now looked nervous. The ones who whispered now stayed silent, because the black woman they dismissed as lost was now the one writing the future. "Clear your desk. You've got 5 minutes." The words didn't come with a scream. They came low and sharp, like a blade sliding out of velvet. "Clear your desk. You've got 5 minutes." The receptionist blinked, like she hadn't heard it right. "Wait, what?" Janelle stepped closer, her voice calm but with zero room for negotiation. "I said clear your desk." The whole lobby held its breath. The girl's mouth opened, but no words came out. Her face shifted confusion to disbelief to panic. "You can't be serious. I didn't mean anything by what I said earlier." "Two thought." "That was the problem," Janelle interrupted. "You didn't think. You judged. You laughed. You called security on the woman who signed your check." Now, she wasn't just humiliated, she was exposed. "Look, I have bills," the girl pleaded, her voice cracking. "I was just doing my job. I didn't know who you were." Janelle's tone didn't change. "And what if I wasn't the CEO? Would your behavior still be acceptable?" That question hung in the air like thunder. Because that was the truth. The treatment she gave Janelle had nothing to do with credentials and everything to do with appearance. The girl slowly started packing her things. The desk phone, the coffee cup, the framed selfie. Each item made a soft sound, the kind of sound you don't forget when it's you being escorted out. The junior manager from earlier turned away awkwardly, pretending to check his email. Even Marcus, the security guard, looked uncomfortable. He wasn't celebrating, he just looked ashamed. And Janelle? She stood still, calm, in control. Because she didn't enjoy firing people, but she knew what happened when you let the little slights slide. They become the culture, and she was here to break that cycle. The elevator dinged again. Her assistant reappeared with a tablet. "The team is ready in conference room A." Janelle nodded. Then, right before walking away, she turned back to the receptionist, now stuffing the last of her things into a tote bag. "No hard feelings, but you had a choice the moment I walked in." She paused, "And you chose to be small." With that, she walked off heels, clicking like a gavel in a courtroom. And the whole company just realized who was judging them now. She announces major layoffs, starting with every department that ignored her. The moment Janelle walked into conference room A, the energy shifted. It wasn't like the lobby. No smirks here, no judgment, just silence, the kind that comes when people realize they might have messed with the wrong one. She stood at the head of the long glass table, the board of directors flanking her like a wall of quiet power. Her assistant handed her a sleek black folder labeled Cultural Audit Phase 1. She opened it, laid it on the table, and said, "We're cutting the fat, starting today." Murmurs, shifting chairs, nervous glances. One department head cleared his throat. "With all due respect, Miss Carter, the company's already lean. If we lose more staff..." She cut him off. You're not lean. You're bloated with entitlement and riddled with bias. She tapped a section of the file. This company has lost millions over the last 2 years, not because of the market, but because it built a culture where the wrong voices were allowed to lead and the right ones were never even let through the door. She looked around the room, scanning faces. I watched your lobby, and that told me everything. The HR director shifted. Surely you're not basing staffing decisions on one isolated. Janelle raised a hand. I'm basing them on patterns. I've got 3 months of footage, 2 years of complaints, and more red flags than a football game. The board members behind her nodded. One spoke up. She's not here to ask permission. We approved full restructuring authority as part of the acquisition. That's when the names started dropping. She called them out, one by one. The manager who ignored her. The director who referred to her as some DEI hire in a Slack message he didn't realize was forwarded. Even the VP of operations, the one who had conveniently stepped out of the lobby earlier, was on the list. You created a culture where people like me were treated like outsiders, Janelle said. So now I'm creating one where that won't be tolerated. One by one, departments were dissolved. Others were merged. New heads were appointed, including a young Black woman from customer service who'd previously been denied a promotion twice, despite outperforming her entire team. Janelle looked her in the eye and said, "You saw me when no one else did. You're now head of employee experience." Gasps, applause, a few angry exits. And through it all, Janelle never raised her voice. Because when you're in control, you don't have to shout. Then comes the twist. She's not just the CEO, she's also the new owner of the building. Just when the tension in the room started to settle, just when people thought the storm had passed, Janelle turned, walked to the window, and looked out. From the 17th floor, the city looked small. The skyline shimmered. Cars moved like toys. She stood there for a moment, hands behind her back, and then asked casually, almost like small talk, "Who here remembers the last time rent went up?" People exchanged glances. A few murmured. One brave soul from finance answered, "About 6 months ago? Why?" Janelle turned around, her voice still low and steady. "That's about to happen again. Because the lease you're under, it's expired, and I'm raising it." The room froze. "What?" someone asked. Another voice chimed in, nervous now. "Wait, the lease? You mean the company's lease for this floor?" Janelle smiled. "No, I mean the lease for the entire building." Silence. One of the executives swallowed hard. "I thought this place was owned by the Cressmont Group." Janelle nodded. It was, until last Friday. She opened another folder and placed it on the table. The first page? Property transfer agreement. Crestmont Tower to J. Carter Holdings. The signatures were right there. Black ink. No questions. "I didn't just acquire the company," she said. "I bought the building. Every floor. Every square inch. Including that front desk." Now the panic set in. Because this wasn't just a corporate shakeup. This was total control. "So," she continued, "for those of you thinking of jumping ship, be my guest. Just know I probably own the office you're walking into next." It was elegant, ruthless, undeniable. She had flipped the script so completely. There was nothing left for anyone to say. Some tried to look respectful. Others tried not to look scared. But Janelle wasn't here for their approval. She was here for the ones watching quietly, the interns, the assistants, the women of color in the back rows who'd spent years trying to be seen. She looked right at them and nodded. Don't let them tell you what power looks like. Let them watch you redefine it. And with that, she closed the folder. Final message. Never underestimate a Black woman who walks in like she owns the place. The building was quieter now. Some had been fired, some had resigned, but many, especially those who had been invisible for years, stood a little taller that day. Janelle stepped back into the lobby one last time. Same heels, Same suit, same woman. But this time, everyone stood up when she walked in. Even Marcus, the security guard, nodded respectfully. No clipboard this time, no questions, just recognition. The new receptionist, a young black woman with short curls and a warm smile, greeted her. "Good morning, Miss Carter." "Good morning, Deja," Janelle said. "How's your first day?" "Best one I've had in a long time." They smiled. No more tension, no more tests. Just peace and power. Before leaving, Janelle turned to look at the space one last time. This lobby had tried to shrink her. Now it stood as a reminder of what happens when you assume. She walked outside where the silver Benz waited, sunlight catching the glass doors behind her. Her assistant opened the door, but before stepping in, Janelle turned to the small crowd that had gathered near the windows watching her. She didn't wave. She didn't gloat. She simply said, "Never underestimate a black woman who walks in like she owns the place, because she just might." Then she stepped into the car and pulled away, leaving behind a company and a culture forever changed. Sometimes power doesn't come from yelling. It comes from being undeniable. Janelle didn't demand respect. She made it impossible to deny. Have you ever been judged like this? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget, they're watching when you walk in. Make them remember it.